don't know.
But if anybody watches you, they know that.
Well, I don't know about that.
Oh, are you kidding? You guys kidding?
Well, I have a question for you. By the way, this is my friend Chris. He's joining me here today on this episode of Body Slammed. Boom. Today, Chris and I are going out. We're in Nashville. We're going out into town. We're going to do some help with some homeless folks. We're going to hang out with some real good friends of ours, some pastors, some preachers, some Bible teachers. So it's going to be a good day.
A great day, yeah.
But I want to ask, while I've got Chris here, I'm going to ask him some questions. And here's a question I want to ask you, Chris.
Yes, sir.
A weekend like we've had, of course, it's really hard to describe. A weekend like we've had where we all come together from all over the world to do what we do.
Yeah.
How would you describe it?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I think first, it's going to sound weird, but it's very emotionally draining, guys. If you watch the first set of Wise Guys podcasts, it was very emotional. Bob sort of he sort of gets you to talk about stuff you don't want to talk about, stuff you probably don't want to talk about either. Stuff that just it's really personal. And this weekend was, Scott, I think you'd agree, it was no different. This stuff hasn't been posted yet, but I tell you, folks, it was tough. Some really heavy stuff. So first and foremost, I think it's very emotionally draining. It's also very spiritually uplifting because I get to hang out with people like this guy right here, who's just really so funny, and he just so loves the Lord. It's such an encouragement to be around him. And so it's really encouraging just to see everybody. Guys, you have no idea what a privilege, how much of a privilege we all feel it is to be able to come into your lives. Scott, you totally agree with that.
Absolutely.
It's you guys, you have no idea what a privilege it is to come into your lives. We're so blessed by that. So
I got another question for you.
Yeah, sure.
Then I'll leave you alone. But you probably are one of the most studied people I know in Scripture. Yes, that's true. Tell me about, I think anyone who watches your podcast, by the way, if you've not seen the So What podcast, you need to check that out. It's absolutely incredible. Completely different from anything else on the Sanctuary International Matrix Network. It's completely Bible based. It's taking passages and scriptures and thoughts of theology, concepts, and making them very understandable. Very, very cool. The last thing I want to ask you is about that, your passion for Scripture. If someone out there were to tell you that they really want to develop the passion that you have for Scripture, where would they begin?
Wow. If you haven't really studied the Bible before, it can be really intimidating. And I can tell you that I have this passion for the Word because Pastor Bob actually taught me how to study the Bible. I'd come to the Scriptures, didn't know where to start. I didn't know that you could really tear a verse apart and where do these guys get the meanings for these words? I had no idea. But if you're really interested and you really want to dig deeper into the Word, guys, there are so many resources out there. Much more so than when I started in the dark ages. There's this thing called the internet now.
You act like you're old or something.
There are just some really great resources, and I'm actually going to do a podcast or two on what's called hermeneutics, which is the science of study of the Scriptures, to sort of guide people through that process. I'll be doing that, I'm not sure exactly when, but I am going to be doing a series on hermeneutics, which you'll really want to check out if you really want to learn that, how to study the Scriptures. I'm going to talk about that. But the important thing, honestly, is just committing yourself to reading the Word, becoming familiar with it. I was corresponding with this guy who asked that same question, and he said he really wanted to know about a particular book. I said, then read it. He said, I just read it. I said, no, read it several times. Read it multiple times and take notes. What common themes do you see? What words does the author repeat? Because if he repeats it, there's an emphasis there, right?
Yeah.
It's important, right? Yeah. And then come back to me and talk to me. What did you see? And so he's still doing that, so I'm waiting for him to get back to me. But that's really, it's be very intentional about your reading. You know, be very, very intentional and very prayerful about it too, and ask the Lord to show you. You know, that's a great start.
Well, Chris, you're a great friend, and I'm such a better person in the Lord because of knowing you. And I want to thank you for being my friend and for the work that we get to do together. It's a privilege and a joy, and together Chris and I are going to work real hard to give them.
We're going to give them heaven.
Give them heaven.
All right.